Ryan Drill here for All Access MMA, and my next guest picked up the vacant HRMMA featherweight title, beating Lance Lawrence via unanimous decision, and it is Adli Edwards back on the show. Adli, how are you?
Great, man. Great to be back. Good to see you again, especially after another win. So that's always a good thing to come back and talk about.
Exactly, and it was a tough fight, and as I was telling you before we went live, I watched the fight this morning on YouTube preparing for this interview, and I was blown away by what happened at the end of the third round. There was a lot of confusion as to whether it was a 3-round fight or a 5-round fight, and I guess I can understand it to some degree. Title fights, main event being 3 rounds versus 5 rounds, but the contract said 3 rounds. And they were trying to make you go out there for a 4th round. Kind of run me through that. What was going through your head?
Yeah, that was nuts. So originally when they're setting up this fight, as you can imagine, regional pay right now is really low with nobody being able to, occupy the stands with COVID restrictions. So I was like, look, man, if it's only 3 rounds, or it's only this much pay, and I can only, expect a 3-round fight. And plus, honestly, more than that, I was hoping for a quick turnaround call. I was trying to get back in the UFC quick. So I assume I'm not going to be main eventing up, any cards in the UFC my first fight in. So, I want to be ready for that 3 5-minute round fight. And when that ring girl came around with that 4th ring card, I was a little nervous. I was like, what's going on here? That was wild. And I guess watching the replay, you even see his corners being like, no, 5, it's 5. But I don't know what that was about. But yeah, it definitely made me nervous. Thought they were going to pull a quick one on me. Being the Lance's hometown. So
right, yeah,
definitely a weird, awkward moment there. Like what's about to happen?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that. And the really interesting part about it for me was you have one of your corners, the Irish hand grenade, Marcus Davis, who I know pretty well, and I can only imagine how animated he was getting. Tell me, what was it like having him there, and what was that situation like?
Yeah, he was about to run in the cage there at the end. It was wild. And I guess because I rewatched the fight, of course, and the commentators were like, it sounded like they were trying to like make peace with Marcus. Like, whoa, it's good. So I'm sure he was about to make a fuss about it. I mean, it was we were getting really close. At the end of that, I guess you call it in between the 3rd and 4th round, that they thought the guy's like, hey man, if you're not going to answer the bell, you're going to forfeit the fight. And at that point, I was like, well, this has gone too far. And the weird thing was they had a HRMMA is run by B2 fighting organization, Fight Alliance, or excuse me, I might be butchering that right now. But they had a fight the very next night, and the guy who I wrote my contract with, figured everything out with, he was actually over there. So my only point of contact that we had this discussion with wasn't even in the building. So I was like, what's happening here? Who do you even go by? I had no idea I really had no idea if I was going to be fighting 2 more rounds or not.
Man, oh man. Well, I mean, it was very clear you won the first 3 rounds, so he would have had to have gotten a finish to beat you. I mean, it wasn't his hometown, so I guess you never really know with judges, but run me through the fight, man, because it was one of those fights where you just really seemed to dictate the pace. You're wrestling just, won each and every round, and great top control. Like, how good did you feel going through 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounds?
I felt really good. Honestly, it was one of the calmest moments I felt going in there before the fight. Usually I'm amped up and energetic, and I've done that fight 100 times in my head. I knew how it was going to go down. As soon as I got my hands on him, I felt like I could throw him around. He surprised me a little bit. He was a little stronger and had some, that gorilla grip, which surprised me a little bit. You can tell he does a lot of jiu-jitsu. And, I've seen how he fights. He's got a 100% finishing rate. People take him down because they don't want to deal with his range and his hard head and his durability on the feet, and then he submits them. So right out the gates, I wanted to let him know that I'm going to put you on the ground. I'm going to be in your guard. I'm not even going to try to pass your guard, and I'm going to let you know you can't do anything to me. And unfortunately, in that first 30 seconds of me doing that, I battered him a little too hard and busted my knuckle. And you can see, I mean, that little scar right there. It's healing up okay pretty quickly, but I split the knuckle completely in half right by the edge there. So it made gripping a little bit tough, especially as the fight went on. And I guess when the bone broke, part of it pierced actually the top of my hand, and I was wondering where all this blood was coming from, and I guess it was from inside of my own hand.
Wow.
After that first round, honestly, I think if it wasn't his hometown, that would have been a 10-8 round. I mean, we beat him up and down. We had him in multiple submission attempts. The second round was more of the same. You know, I'm kicking him, landing head kicks, you know, chopping him away, taking him down, battering him. And then halfway through that second round, I couldn't even grab a hold of the dude. So there's a couple interesting situations. Like at one point he rolled for a knee bar, and I sat down on his hand, and I had him, and his arms are stuck under my legs. And I was like, I can hit you. And I was like, it's the wrong hand. So I'm like, I could just come no closer to trying to reach him with an elbow. And, you know, at first I'm thinking like, I'm going to grab him with my right hand and hit with my left. But I couldn't even grab him with my right. So I had to hold him with my left and just wait for him to get close enough. It was definitely a unique challenge to try to problem solve. How am I going to hurt this guy when I'm so, I guess, handicapped? But it worked out. Okay. I dominated. I think just about almost every moment of the fight, I think I was handling him.
Is this an injury that might keep you out a little while? You're going to be able to regroup and maybe get back in there soon if you do get a short notice fight?
No, I just actually left my physical therapy office yesterday, and I'm like going twice as fast as the normal recovery. I'm doing all my rehab, doing everything right. Should be a couple more weeks, and I can start getting to work and training. You know, using the hand training. Of course, I'm still at it every single day. Hopefully, I think March is the soonest I'll be ready to be 100% like fight shape, ready to go. You know, been punching people for a couple weeks and getting those hard sparring rounds in. So, yeah, I think it might be a good layoff anyway. Just kind of recharge, refuel, and upgrade some skill sets heading into the next one.
For sure. Now, I do have to ask, did you get tired at all in that third round? It looked like there was a moment maybe where you were either just taking a little break, but I do have to say, having said that, the commentary seemed a little biased. And I understand it, again, it was in his hometown, and so it made the viewer think that, oh, geez, well, maybe Adli is getting tired. Just elaborate on that a little bit and just tell me, the realness of what was going on.
Yeah. Well, let me start with that commentary. Chris Lytle was honestly, I think, the best commentator on there. He was nailing it. I think he had some really smart, intelligent things to say. But the other two guys, I mean, the one guy told me even ahead of time, he's like, hey, man, Lance is my best bud. And I was like, all right, so fair enough. And it is his hometown, and I get it. It's the Kentucky boys that are probably, and the Kentucky fans that have seen Lance a lot that are probably most of their viewership for the pay-per-view. But, I mean, I'm hammering this dude. They're not saying a word. I get him in, like, submission attempts. They're not saying a word. He rolls for a knee bar, gets immediately stuffed. And the next 2 minutes are about how sweet that attempt was. I mean, I thought it was wild. And that third round, here's the thing that really surprised me in that fight. That cage was tiny. I mean, really, really tiny. I can't remember the exact measurements now, but I think it's like 4 feet less in diameter than even the Contender Series fight, which is a small cage. So we were on top of each other, and both of us have massive wingspans. So we were like, before the fight started and got weigh-ins, I went in the cage, and I reached back, touched my hand on the cage, and my lead hand was over top of the logo in the middle. Like, I could almost touch hands with somebody. So we were right on top of each other, and our whole game plan was darting out, exploding, cracking them, and I just didn't really have a lot of that room to work. In the third round, there's a moment there where we got an exchange. I stood up there, and he kept coming forward. I was hitting him with some hammers, and I expected him to slow down. It seemed like he paced himself by not doing much the first couple of rounds and being durable, and then he had a burst there in the third that kind of caught me off guard. I should have been a little more disciplined there, but I immediately, was like, all right, let's get after it, and took care of him. And then again, like you said about the commentators, rewatching that thing, like, man, Adli didn't take that right hand well. Like, I blocked that right hand. You watch the slow motion, I'm checking it, throwing an uppercut and hook. Everything they're saying, it sounds like you said, if you're hearing the commentator and watching at the same time, it sounds like I'm getting battered for 10 seconds, maybe, however long those exchanges were. But in reality, we're scrapping there, throwing, and at the end, I'm coming up on top. So, yeah, I guess that's the price you pay for fighting in someone's hometown, in someone's backyard.
Well, it clearly was a definitive win for yourself over a tough guy who fought on Contender Series. He took his opponent to a decision, and he's clearly one of those guys that's been on the UFC's radar. So I have to imagine that they were watching this fight, and then someone like yourself that is on their radar. Are you disappointed, though, that you didn't get to finish? Do you feel like this might maybe delay your ability to get into the UFC? Or do you might have to go out and fight once or twice more before you get that shot?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think you can see, I broke my hand right out of the gates. And the kid's got a track record of never being finished. On the Contender Series, I heard that his opponent outweighed him by 20 pounds by the way of the fight. And I think it was like 8 pounds or something the night of the fight, the night of weigh-ins. I mean, he was at a massive size disadvantage. And they were even saying, hey, man, we will sign you, but you just missed weight. And I beat Lance up worse than that kid did. So, I think using that logic, you never know how things change or how they see things, but it seems like I'd be a shoo-in. I feel like I've done the work. I've beaten tough guys. I've shown I'm capable in all areas. I hope they can see that and see the work I've been putting in, and I'm staying on it. We're in the middle of a quarantine. I got 2 fights back to back, earliest opportunities I could. I think they gotta see that I'm here to fight and to win. And hey, man, we only have such a short career, and I really don't want to spend on the regional scene. I want to prove to the UFC and these guys that I can compete with their guys. What better way to do it than put me in there with them?
For sure. What did your team say afterwards? Were they pleased with, the injury that you overcame and just the dominant win? Like, what did they feel about your performance and, what is next?
Yeah, they were happy about it. I think we followed the game plan well. It's in my nature. I was disappointed. I wasn't happy with it. I wanted to put him away and finish him. Just something about his build. And like I said, he's a tough kid. I had a hard time finishing those submissions. I thought I could switch gears and go that route, but to be honest, it wasn't something I was really working on a lot in camp. I wanted to TKO the guy, and or obviously KO him would have been better. But I thought I didn't plan to go to my submissions. It wasn't something I was keeping sharp. And when we got to those positions, and I had to because my hand was busted, I could have tightened it up. So that was the number one thing in the book is let's tighten up my finishing ability with those submissions, and we're ready plotting that course of action and taking care of that.
Well, tell me, man, what does it mean for you to win this belt, the HRMMA belt? And what does it look like? You must have it close. Is it a good looking belt?
Well, it's funny you should ask. It's right over here. It's looking pretty good.
There you go.
I think my kids have been wearing it around the house for the most part, so sometimes it's hard to find. But yeah, it's a nice looking belt. It looks really sharp. I'm a fan. Fortunately, I don't plan to stick around and defend it. I want to, vacate it as I go on to bigger and better things. But, I got to say, I really wanted to win a professional belt. And if I got to hold up something on the wall to be proud of, they do a good job with that. It's a nice looking belt. Can't say that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you get to keep that, right? They will make another belt for whoever is going to be the next champion when you move on to better things here, right?
Hey, they can try to come to North Carolina and take it from me.
Fair enough. Okay, I think they're going to let you have it. Now, the fight was November the 6th, so you've had a little bit of time since then. Thanksgiving was just a week ago now. You must have had some time to really refuel and rehydrate. I mean, did you dive in and kind of go a little hardcore this Thanksgiving because you earned it?
Oh yeah, it's funny you say that, man. I started wrestling when I was 15 years old, and immediately, probably cutting too much weight than I should have. Didn't have Thanksgiving from my sophomore year in high school up until, through my wrestling career in high school, through my college wrestling career. Then I immediately went to amateur MMA, into pro MMA. It's been a long time, like 15 years since I've been able to sit down and actually eat the food. And I'm not somebody who cuts corners and have a cheat meal. I'm sitting there just watching everybody else eat pumpkin pie. And I got to tell you, my mom is the best cook. She makes so much food, platters and platters of all sorts of stuff. I'm not a Thanksgiving food guy, and she accommodates that. We had any sort of food you can imagine. My mom made 3 turkeys. I mean, it was crazy. My sister, fantastic with desserts especially, all sorts of stuff. So for once, I actually got to live like a normal person. Maybe pigged out a little bit, but Sunday, right back to that diet. We were eating clean after we cleared out the leftovers, of course, and we got right back to it. So it was definitely a nice needed reset. I think I needed it. I think the family and kids needed me to be able to unattach myself for a minute. And it's nice because I know there's in the back of my head, I'm like, what if I get a call for the UFC last minute? I know that's not happening right now with my hand. So it let me have that freedom to live a little bit.
Well, good. Congratulations. Again, it was a very impressive win over a very tough guy. So that really is a nice feather in your cap and a beautiful belt to boot there. Now, obviously, there's been UFC cards every single weekend. I mean, I don't think that there's been a weekend that's passed where there hasn't been a UFC card to watch. Have you been really dialing in and dissecting the guys in your weight class and just sizing them up and really starting to study them? Because as we've mentioned, you are on that doorstep. So you never know, who and when and where it might be that you're going to get that next shot.
Dude, I got a list right here of all the guys in my weight class who I think could be potential opponents. I've got all these guys. I'm watching film on them. I'm studying them. I'm figuring out how to make myself the worst matchup for every one of them. And I love it, man. Every time there's a featherweight fight, we're dialed in and watching and seeing how we'd fare and what we would need to do to win. So I love that, man. It's great to have so much film every single weekend to take a peek at.
Exactly. You and me are like right here on that. I figured you might be studying up just a little bit. Has there been any newcomers in the featherweight division that have stood out to you that you thought, that might be an interesting first fight, or someone that you'd really like to? I know you're not a trash talking type of guy, but just someone that you'd like to share the octagon with.
I realize some of those guys, you got to earn your shot up the rankings unless it's a last minute replacement. But there's a lot of these newcomers here who have been coming in, and I get it. It's trying times. Sometimes you just got to grab whatever's available with COVID and fights dropping off left and right. But some of these guys, I have a little chip on my shoulder that these guys got in before me. Almost everybody's gotten in the last year or two. I'm a little bitter about that. It wasn't me getting the call. So I want to clear out these guys. I think that's a good place to start with some of these guys to prove that was my spot, not theirs. I know that might sound a little, malicious, but hey, man, I feel like I put in the work, and I think my family's been through a lot, and I think these guys we're taking my positions and my place up these rankings.
No, for sure. You should feel that way. I mean, you're clearly one of the top prospects in the country, so you absolutely should feel that way. What did you think of? It was Jonathan Pierce's performance over Kai Kamaka. Jonathan came down from lightweight and fought at featherweight. Was that something that really stood out to you when you look at him? Because you guys are both the same height and build. I immediately kind of thought of you. I thought, geez, those guys, that would be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, he did great. Because I've seen Pierce's opponent. What's his name? Kyle Kamaka, is that right?
Yeah,
Kamaka.
Yeah.
I saw him fight before that in LFA. He's got some powerful hands, but I remember watching his fight with his opponent, and his opponent wasn't doing what I thought he should be doing to deal with it. And Jonathan Pierce looked awesome. He had a great game plan. He took him where Kai Kamaka obviously didn't have the answers, and he wore him out there. Awesome ground and pound, great finish. He looked really good. It's cool seeing. It's validating a little bit, seeing guys who have similar nuances of styles being able to apply it well. So it was good seeing him dominate a tough and dangerous guy like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I wanted to ask you too, man, was the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix has been awesome. I mean, Bellator's featherweight division is deep. They have some studs in there. I mean, Emmanuel Sanchez, AJ McKee. I mean, Pitbull. There's just so many legitimate studs that are there. Would you ever envision, if you got the opportunity, to go there, or are you just kind of set on the UFC? That's the alpha dog, and that's where you want to be.
If I'm gonna be fighting against the best in the world, I always say the UFC is the place where the best are. But that Bellator featherweight tournament, like you're saying, that's no joke. There's some tough guys in there. If you're competing in that, and you're winning that tournament, that says a lot. I think that puts you up there as one of the best in the world for sure. So yeah, that'd be fun. I wouldn't mind doing that, but at the same time, I think right now I'm pretty doubted on the UFC. I think that's my best opportunity to get a lot of fights in. I know Bellator's been more active lately, but I just see myself being able to climb through the UFC and be able to compete for those world titles. And unfortunately, one way or not, the UFC world titles got more weight on it and more prestige and more people gunning for it. And I think a little bit more talent on the way up. And I think that's the way I want to earn my title and my shot.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I believe you deserve it. I know I talked to Marcus Davis previously. He believes you deserve it. And I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there that feel the exact same way. So again, congratulations, Adli, on winning the vacant HRMMA featherweight strap. Awesome performance, and always a pleasure having you on the show. Before I do let you go, I want to give you the floor. Anyone you want to thank, any sponsors you have, or any social media you want to plug?
Yeah, a big thank you to my coaches, my family, everybody who's real close to my circle and have been supporting me. I really appreciate it. It's been a trying 2 years. I mean, we're off that injury. It was rough, man. The future looked really uncertain, and it was nice to come out of this, dark time of, are we going to be healthy? How are we going to get through this COVID? What's it going to look like on the other side? We had a lot of not so sure answers coming back at us. And it was nice for people like Marcus Davis, Josh Brackett, Josh Williams, my coach back home. My family who continue to believe in me, my wife, even my kids, my biggest fans. It was really nice having those people in my corner. And then I've got great sponsors, especially I always talk about this dude, Grant Clements. That dude helped repair me and heal me and get me back on my feet here. I'm really indebted to these guys. I've got a great team around me.